Mark Pfeiffer, Mike Burke. Why is it not going off?
And Christine.
Christine. Hi, Christine. Sue Anderson is waiting. She's one of our guest
Yep.
speakers. And we may be getting somebody else calling in. Lisa.
Hi,
Hi, Lisa. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
pretty good.
Good to hear it. I'd like to just go ahead and get started with the two things that we absolutely need to get done. And that's just approving the minutes from the meeting of 11/18/21. The reason we've been waiting to do this is because minutes can only be approved by a quorum of the people who attended the meeting. The people who attended that meeting were Mark, myself, and Martin. So I did send the minutes to you. If you have had a chance to review them,
Move to
I would
accept.
like to go ahead and accept those meetings. Somebody make a motion?
So moved.
No, you can't make a motion, Barbara.
Oh,
Second.
You can't do that either.
Yeah, you weren't there.
So Martin is making the motion.
I second.
Mark is seconding, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. That's been hanging over my head. The next one is the minutes for the meeting of 1/13/22. People have had a chance to review them. Can somebody, if it's okay, somebody can make a motion?
Okay, so
I move to
I'll move
accept.
that too.
Yep.
Second.
Motion made by Martin. Seconded by Mark. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I am looking at my attendance, and right now we have two guest speakers. One is Sue Anderson from the Tiverton Historic Preservation Advisory Commission. The other one was supposed to be Dave Stewart. I don't see him
Yeah,
yet.
he's here. I see
Oh,
him.
he's here. Hi, Dave. I didn't see you.
I just joined. I was actually on another Zoom meeting. Sorry.
You just snuck in on me. Even though it's in a different order, I'd like, if it's all right with the commission, we'd like Dave Stewart to go ahead because he actually has another meeting to go to or an appointment to go to at 7:30. So Sue, would you mind letting him go first? Sue Anderson?
No, not at all.
Okay, great.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. The reason we're having these visits by different commissions is that we've talked about this and it was very important for us to understand what different commissions are doing and what their goals are and how they will interact with the Economic Development Commission. So David, I'm just going to introduce you. You are the vice chair of the Harbor Commission. Bruce Cox is actually the chairperson, and you're sitting in for him, which is our pleasure. So if you could sort of fill us in on what you've been doing and what some of your goals are and how you think we should work together.
Okay, well, no, thanks. This is great. I've been a resident, I guess, for 35 years at Tiverton, and I'm very focused on the waterfront. I've been on the Harbor Commission now for, I don't know, 20 years, maybe 15 years. I lose track. But I was also very involved with the Grinnell's Beach restoration. I was vice chairman along with Trish Hilton and the whole group. And, it's such a focal point. Tiverton is a waterfront community. We have tremendous assets. And the old dock, which, kind of fell apart. Everything else was just very derelict. So this year we were able to get $10,000 to restore it, and we ended up putting in some new pilings. We ended up recycling the ramps and floats that had been used by the state in construction of the bridge, and we found some floats there. And then Fred Souza, who we worked with, ended up finding a ramp, as well as we also reused a ramp that was part of the state, beautiful ramp, which is probably worth $30,000 or $40,000. So long story short, we ended up getting the dock restored year, very end of the season. And it's not perfect, but it's certainly usable. And we worked very close with Rick Rogers, who was terrific, and the whole team. My goal, or our goal, is to try to make the whole area better. There is room there for rack storage for kayaks. There's room at the dock for dinghy storage. We could eventually do storage for smaller boats up on some sort of float. It's a tremendous resource. It's already in operation, and what we want to do is maximize what we have there. And we can, you saw it, but on the back page, one of the pages of the new Harbor Commission, the Tiverton Harbor Management Plan, is a paragraph of ways to generate money for the town, and it's totally within our realm to charge for dinghy tie-up, charge for, like other towns like Bristol, Barrington, Warren, Newport. They work on a lottery system, and they allocate spaces for everything from the dinghies to the kayaks. It's a revenue generating thing for the town. It's a perfect access. It's an ideal location. It's going to drive business to the town. It's, everything's good about it, and it's working. And I just want the committee, or we want the committee, to realize the opportunities. And it costs the town really nothing to almost get that whole thing done. And like we did with the beach, with the Grinnell's Beach, we had some grants from various, from the state, and from a thing Patrick Kennedy did years ago. But bottom line is, we ended up with more money from donations and from businesses and people. The beach, the Grinnell Beach, I think, is, not patting ourselves back, I think it's one of the best assets this town has. It's beautiful, and there's no reason that the dock. Pardon me.
Thank you very much. Great work.
Well, no, it's beautiful. I mean, it's really nice. I go by there all the time, and there's been weddings there. There's people sitting there all the time, and it's really it's better than the old gas station. When I first moved here, the gas station, the best place in town. So the last part of the puzzle, the abutment was the first part, the beach is the second part. Now it's the docks, surrounding area. We got to maximize what we have. If you go to Bristol and if you go to Newport and you see the way they've used with kayak racks, it's great. And but the dinghy docks are already, the docks are already in, and we could easily have 15 boats there, and on a market rate, you get $300 a boat. That brings in some nice money to benefit and just keep the thing going. And $300 to leave a dinghy there is a bargain. And Standish, there's no way you can even get a float there. And we're also even going to tie a dinghy. And the whole thing work on different systems. The way they do it in Newport is like within the next couple of weeks, it's going to be a lottery system. And all this stuff has to be ironed out, but we just want to maximize the resource that we have. And we think with getting the docks put back to place, and it didn't cost, so much of the stuff was recycled, and for $10,000, a piling alone cost almost $2,000 to put in. And so we just want to maximize it. That's about all we're here for.
Oh, Renee, you've muted. Renee.
That's really amazing. When I had, one of the reasons that we had even started to make sure that we spoke to you was that we had heard from William Vieira. I think he's your liaison from the town.
He's right. And he's a great guy, and he's been good to work with, and it is what it is,
I think I think it's what you guys are doing is great. For me, as you're talking, it all makes sense. But like anything else, I have questions, and that's the information that I would need. We should be working on, like, who would be collecting these dock fees? Where would those dock fees go? And that's the kind of thing that we actually be needing to work on.
Well,
to,
Well, we know it's, we need signage there. We need, I mean, the basics are there. We need to fine tune it. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But we have a subcommittee where we figure out, okay, and like I say, they do a lottery system in Newport, and people, who want a space, put their name in, and it changes every year. They have it on an annual basis, and there's definitely a demand for it.
absolutely.
And I mean, this is a waterfront community, and community, excuse me. And for so long, I've lived here 35 years, and a lot of the town commissioners and people involved never appreciated that we are a waterfront community with the best assets that we have. And we used to fight. We used to go try to make people ignored it. But I mean, this place is ideal. It's right off Route 20. It's the biggest asset we have, and let's maximize it. And right now, between the abutment that's been beautifully done, between the beach, between the Grinnells, and now we've got the dock, and it's just, and it brings businesses into town. It brings, it's got to be maximized in how we do it, and whether it's subcommittees or whatever. And we don't have all the answers right now. I'll admit that.
Right.
But we have plenty of time. We have plenty of time now between here and June 1st or whatever to start it. And we're not going to make all the right, we're going to have to modify it as we go along. But it's not rocket science. I mean, I belong to 2 yacht clubs in Newport, and I'm on the waterfront committee with both of them. I have a good handle on how the whole thing's run and how you do it. And people, there's a shortage of docking space, kayak space, storage space. We have it. We just have to maximize.
We have to figure it out. And there's other properties also, because the other property that is also right on the water is the Bridgeport building down by the fish store down by Nanaquacket, the entrance to Nanaquacket.
I'm a real estate broker.
But you're talking about waterfront property.
That's a whole different ballgame.
I know. That's a whole different ballgame.
That's down the road, and the guy who owns that is totally inflexible. We really should concentrate, and that's privately owned. That's privately owned, so it's not in our purview. We control the abutment.
Okay.
And that's where we have to focus.
I think we could probably do something where we are like having members of the EDC attend your meeting, because I did talk to Bruce about that. I know your next one is February 22nd. I think it's a Tuesday, because you usually hold them on the Mondays, but it's a holiday. So, I mean, we can start doing something like that, where we're just talking back and forth and seeing where we could fit the pieces in. That would be, it's a deal.
Yeah. No, we really should. I mean, it's because it's in place. It couldn't be
that income. If you plow that money that you make on the dinghies and so on, then it just enhances what you do in the waterfront, where it helps support the boat for harbor master and doing all the keeping track of all the moorings and all that kind of stuff too.
Right. I mean, and down the road, the dock could be extended, where we could put the harbor master's boat as well as the fireboat on that dock. We would save $7,500. We'd save $7,000. Right now, we're paying standards $3,500 for each boat. We could put them there, and Kenny Hilton could rent those spots out in a heartbeat. He's all for it. He doesn't care, and we'd save $7,000 just on doing that. And to put the dock in would be half of that. And so from then on, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. And
go ahead, Barbara.
Hello, I'm curious. And looking at old pictures of Tiverton, there used to be a boardwalk from Grinnell's to where the Bridgeport building sort of is. Is there any possibility that can be revised? Because opening up Grinnell's has finally sort of, in a long time, established that area, not as commercial, but as a recreation, as a destination. And it would be nice to have another boardwalk.
Well,
They're
that's-
actually the boardwalk was actually from the Stone Bridge to Riverside.
But no, there wasn't. There are pictures of it being along.
You mean, yeah, so that was going
the west
north.
side of that wall.
Correct. It was going north, according to the history that I have read.
Well,
Well, that's something to put on the list, Barbara. I think that's, we've got some.
It would be so nice for people to be able to walk there and sit on a little bench and picnic or whatever.
well, one thing I think we have to do is sort out who actually owns the property that is between the across the street from the professional center. Then there is a wall. There's the walkway. Who owns that property on the west side of the wall? And I have to believe hopefully it'd be town property. And that's everywhere from where the dock would be down to where the coffee roasters thing is. And there's quite a bit of stuff there. There's at least 15 feet of depth, and you could do something with that. And maybe we can.
I actually just researched that, and the state gave it to the town for $1.
Oh, then we could maximize that. We could put in some pilings. We could do, make that a really attractive place to store a small boat sitting area, kayaks. It's perfect. It's protected. It's in the lee of the southwest wind, which is the predominant wind. They could launch boats there. They could put seats there, and you're not talking a lot of money. And if we start getting revenue from the dinghies as well as the kayak storage, and we could hold events down there. I mean, that place is so underused, and we could do a truck festival there. You could do a lot of things. What do you call it?
And
Well, I think if we can start by setting up like a situation where we have somebody would be interested in being the connection between us and the Harbor Commission, and we can start coming up with the ideas and sort of blocking out what would be priority and what would be first step, sex, and where the money's coming from. That sounds like what
I'm 100% in this project. I mean, it's just when the docks that we're using are all recycled docks from the state, and it didn't cost the town anything to get that. I mean, the biggest thing was Suzer and getting stuff together. But I mean, what we produced there for $10,000, the ramp alone, like I said, was worth $40,000, and so we're ahead of the game.
I think it sounds great, Dave. It really does. So I think.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean,
Can I just give you a little bit of history?
Love it.
I was on the Stonebridge Task Force, Area Improvement Task Force, before it became a Stonebridge committee. And I made a sketch. That was before when we were trying to get funding from the state together for that project. And I sketched, and it was on the town website for a while before when I was chair. And then when they took me off and made it an official committee because they didn't want open space on it. At that time I was with open space. That all went away. But the original sketch that I had given VHB, because we worked with them to try to get a plan going, had a dock going off to the north of the pier, and the harbor master's booth was on top of that dock.
Right. All right.
And that was our plan, and they did away with that because they said we didn't have money for that, so that went by the wayside. But the original plan was to have a dock going off perpendicular to the abutment about halfway up, and that would be where and then there was a little booth there for the harbor master.
Perfect. That's what we need.
That's
Everything is there. It's just you could get a shed for $3,000. We really a cool, or maybe more. Martin knows more about that than me, but it's got so much potential. It's just
well. I had the thought, I was at the optometrist at the Stonebridge at Dr. Bowen this afternoon, and while I was waiting for my eyes to dilate, I was thinking that that whole area is sort of a medical building now, which is very nice, but that the town could utilize it more in having like seaside restaurant, lobster shack or something like that, if we ever really economically want to make the most of that location, because essentially the doctors could be anywhere in just as nice a location down at the next to the Secundit Vet. There's that building or something like that, that maybe when leases run out in the future, it's something to think about. That, and I don't know who owns that building. That
Barbara, we did have that. It was called the Stonebridge Inn.
Yeah, Jack,
I just want to throw something else out. Barbara, hold on a second, because the other thing that will come up with this and increased usage is increased parking. And that's not to say that I'm not in favor of this, but this is also something that we have to include in this.
There is a lot that the town owns behind the restaurant, Red Dory Restaurant, and there's the town. It's a nice lot, and you could couple it with anybody that rents a dinghy spot and get a parking lot. That town property, I've researched it to the hilt, and it's up and used, and it's available, and I mean, it's an ongoing project, but there's no, Barbara, your idea about trying to take over space, the town doesn't want to be in the real estate business. Jack Keglin owns the building. It's a very profitable building. We don't want to be in the lobster business. We just want to develop the waterfront. That's all we're really interested in doing.
I'm glad that you've looked at that, Dave, because that's the first thing that people will say as soon as.
Yeah, the parking is definitely a problem.
First thing that will come out of
But parking is a problem no matter where you go.
No matter what.
People will figure it out. I owned the kayak store for years down in town, and we used to do a lot of things, and people found a place to park. And, don't worry about the parking. Don't worry about the waterfront. I'm
giving you what you'll hear.
Dave, we will have to worry about the parking. Okay, we will.
But look into the town owns that parking.
I'm not disagreeing with you there, but we can't just set aside and say, don't worry about the parking.
Okay. Well, but I think
there's always going to be obstacles, Mike.
I think this is a great start. I'm really glad you came to talk about the dock. I really am enjoying. I'm glad we're doing that, because it's part of the town. You're right. It's something that has been underutilized. We are a waterfront community, and yet except for the yacht club in Standish, you would sort of barely know that.
Right.
So I think what we can do is probably see if we could set up something where either we have a liaison, between the EDC, a formal liaison, or however you want to do that. But I think that's a great start to start talking about it.
I'm totally available, and this is a pet project. And the other thing,
I know where you live.
I know, I've seen you before. My only other suggestion is whatever we can do to make Cumberland Farms clean up their act and do what they've done to a lot of their other places. I've lived in town 35 years. They haven't done a dime. They haven't put a dime into that place. And, it's a great access. People use it all the time. And I have the contact points from Cumberland Farms, and the people don't respond. But for not a lot of money, they could just clean up the face of that place, because it's really, that whole place is becoming very gentrified, very nice, and we love Cumberland Farms, but we need to put pressure on them I grew up in Barrington, and they made all the places, Dunkin' Donuts and all these people conform to some rules, and we should do that with Cumberland Farms.
You know what? We actually did do that with when Dollar General put in their second store.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect example.
I think we tend not to think we can do that, but all these organizations do have Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D, so that when you say, no, that doesn't fit in with our plans for the area, a lot of times you can get a better design. And that's what in fact happened with Dollar General on Stafford Road. We did that.
We can start putting a lot of articles in the paper. We can start writing Cumberland Farms and saying that the consumers want this and that they're not good corporate citizens and they want a corporate image. And the guy said, well, you're on the list, but you're way down. Well, we want to move up on the list. I mean, that place.
I think that from a corporate standpoint, they want to build those great big ones like they did in Portsmouth, and
right. They want to have a
so
gas
there's no
station.
room to expand that one. They'd like to build a sell gas and all that stuff. And
but
place is super busy.
But Martin, on Broadway in Newport, right across from the Newport police station, there was a sleazy looking one like the one we have, and it doesn't sell gasoline, and they put the new face on it with the gray trim and then this, that, and the other, and I have pictures of it. And they fixed it up, and
there's no reason they couldn't
do it. And they have a lot of money. They have more money than we all have, and they want to be good corporate citizens, and we have to push them on it. If we don't push them on it, they're not going to do it. So that's another. Let's push them on it.
Sounds like a plan.
No, I mean
it sounds like something that we should be putting on our. This is where we get the ideas of where we should be working on things, and I agree with you. I mean, it's in my neighborhood. I see it all. I walk past it every week, every day.
It's ugly. It's ugly. So, the signage is terrible. It makes the place look cheap.
Yeah, well, and the interior could use a little help too. So,
well, I don't care about the interior, but what they do inside's fine. They're with them. But we should put pressure on them. Like, look at the Red Dory has got their landscaping done, and Cochran with his place, he fixes it up. I mean, just put some pressure on them. We have to.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you very much.
And good, Dave. I was really glad to hear you. And because I had no idea what the Harbor Commission was doing down there. I thought that the dinghy dock was kind of at a standstill, although it looked a little better. So really pleased to hear that.
I don't know if you saw it. The dinghy dock didn't get completed until the end of the season, but it was in. We couldn't use it because of a couple of minor things, but it's ready to roll. We got all the ducks in a row, and I'll take anybody for a tour of it anytime you want to show you what we can and should do. And what we have is terrific. Just need to be fine-tuned.
Bump it up a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Right.
I will touch base with you and Bruce to figure out next steps for the EDC. And if anybody, I'm putting it out there to any of the members, if anybody is interested in acting as a liaison, that may be something that we could do. Please let me know, and we can take it from there. It's on our list. We are there. I know your next meeting is the 22nd. So
well, Martin certainly knows landscaping.
Yes, Martin. I think that was a plug for you.
Thank you.
But all right, I've got to go pick up my nephew.
I think you better go because I don't want to get in trouble for this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please let us know. We want to maximize this potential.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Thanks.
Wow. Our next guest speaker, who was gracious enough to let Dave go first so he could go pick up his nephew, is Sue Anderson from the Tiverton Historic Preservation Advisory Board. Sue, can you sort of fill us in? Meanwhile, I just have to say it was so helpful for you to have that input on things that had been done and information that you had even for Dave. That was great.
Well, like I said, I took over as chair of the Stonebridge Area Improvement Task Force before it became a official committee. And because I was on open space, and at that time, open space was part of that board. And I was instrumental in trying to get the plans done through VHB, and we had a set of plans for that. We had a streetscape for that. I sketched out a couple of designs that we put on the town website so that people could get an idea of the before and the maybe potential after. I had all that on the website. And then when the town council at that time took off, they decided open space shouldn't be part of that, and they created a whole new commission for that. Then that all got wiped out. So,
But
but
you still
that-
have stuff,
that
but some
whole,
of the,
that whole thing with the dock perpendicular to the north of the abutment and attached to the abutment and to the north of it, with the harbor master's booth on top. I mean, that was all part of that plan.
you wouldn't happen to have those plans lurking around somewhere, would you?
I think I gave them to, they made Chris Spencer the planner. At the time we had, Chris Spencer was the planner, and they made him the chair. So I gave him my whole notebook full of stuff and those plans.
Yeah, if
So-
they were done by a,
It'll be-
if they were done by a
it'll be on
public
file.
committee, then somebody at town hall will have them. Either the clerk can find them or the
Well,
current planner can find them.
I asked for Chris Spencer's plans for his suggestions for the north end or North Main Road or whatever, and they can't seem. And I've asked several people, and nobody seems to be able to find them, including the
Well, it
clerk's
may be in
office.
the basement.
Yeah, that's, we've talked
Because
about
Yeah,
at
but
that time, Chris was in Judson Street. So the planner was in Judson Street. So all that stuff went to Judson Street. So Lord knows where that just stuff came
Right.
from Judson Street and where they put that. I'm thinking it may be in the basement of the town hall.
But
Okay.
if it's not in a labeled box or it was just slipped into something, it could be a nightmare trying to find it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, why don't you go ahead, Sue, because you were actually here to talk about your commission.
Okay, so he was saying how long he had been on the commission. And I'm like, okay, so how long have I been on the Historic Preservation Advisory Board? I was on this board before it became official. Stu Hardy and I were the only two, and that was back when Chris Spencer was our planner. Because anytime he had something come across his board, and people asked, well, what can we do about this? And he knew it was historic. He contacted Stu and I, and, we'd tell him what to do, or our suggestions. And so I don't even remember when that was. Whenever he was planner, I've been on it. But what we have done, we did a lot last year. We put together, I keep getting phone calls from realtors. I have this customer who wants to buy a historic house and it has a sign on it. What do they do? I don't know what to do. Does it have any particular restrictions or anything? Or I get calls from people saying, oh, I'm thinking about buying a historic house. What do I do? Is there restrictions, or whatnot? So I kept getting all those calls. So I said, you know what, we will put together a historic property owners guide. And that's what we did last year. And we published it for the first time. And I made it available. It's on our webpage on the town's website. This winter, I just sent out almost 200 copies to about 200 historic property owners that have our plaques, or we know are historic and should have a plaque, that kind of a thing. So we sent it out to about 200.
Wow.
this past winter. And so that they knew, because some of them, they have no clue as to what to do. In that guide, it tells them if you want to put solar up or, an alternate energy, how should you do it? If you want to change the windows, if you want to put trim up, whatever they want to do, additions or whatever, or how to maintain a historic house, we tell them how to do that. And the main guide that we use is the Secretary of the Interior rehabilitation standards. And that's our primary source. We also talk about our historic plaque program, which we instituted back in 2016, trying to get one of our missions stated in the comp plan is that we are supposed to educate the public on historic preservation. And in the comp plan, it also says that we are a historic community, and we are to, ensure that that is maintained. So we are supposed to educate the public in the comp plan, according to the comp plan. So the first thing we did was we put together this plaque program where for $40, if you have a historic house, and we do have a list of them, and that's also on the website. We also gave it to the building department and the planning department and the tax assessor, so that they have a list of it's about 350 buildings now. Just updated it. And what?
No, I think that's great, because I think one of the things that's important in town is knowing just how important these historic buildings are in terms of the character of the town. It adds to just the general feel and quality of life. And I think it's a very important factor in town. And I think it's a resource that people don't appreciate until you start seeing things either being taken down or, whatever. So I think that's an important mission on your part.
It's also important because having a maintained historic structure helps the economy, because people want to live there. It actually increases. Renee, I think you went to the historic preservation conference.
Yes.
What was it, 2 or 3 years ago, pre-pandemic?
Yes, it was pre-pandemic, yes.
Pre-pandemic. And they had it, and the theme of it was the economy and how historic preservation helped the economy. And it was an eye-opener, because
It was an eye-opener.
yeah, I mean, there's all these resources that says and facts that say a historically maintained building adds to the property values and makes the whole neighborhood look good, and the people want to come, because that's why people go to Tiverton Four Corners, is because of the nice historic character of that little neighborhood and the shops and everything. So that's one reason to keep it and to educate the public that we have all these buildings in town and we've got to take care of them, and this is how you do it. So
Just look at the charm of the point section in Newport.
I'm sorry, what?
Just look at the charm of the point section in Newport. Now those houses are all $1 million plus.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So one of the things that I also have in that historic property owners guide is grants. Now, there are no grants, unfortunately, for homeowners, historic homeowners like me. So I had to pay for my own roof to be done and, carpentry work and to be done. There's no grants I could apply as a homeowner unless I rent my property or have it for commercial. So if you have a historic building that is in a commercial zone, there is a grant available to do that so that you can use that as commercial property. And I keep saying that to, we have written 2 letters to the owner of Temple Chapel, which is the old North Tiverton Baptist Church on Main Road. And the owner owns the apartment houses in back. And this was the first time that, before we were an official board, it was just Stu and I. And that was our first phone call from Chris Spencer about that property. And he said the owner wanted to raise the property and use it as a parking lot for his apartment buildings in back. And both of us said, no, 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 no. So the guy, he just could care less. We have written officially to him 2 letters so far. He just doesn't care about it. He's letting it go. And even though I've said there are grants available to you because it is in a commercial zone, you can put it as an office building, something that doesn't require too much parking, because obviously there's not too much parking there. But there's all these things that you can do. And Chris Spencer, actually, before he left Tiverton, he was working with him, and he had drawn up plans to make that into a residence. But I don't know what happened to that. But like I said, the owner could care less. He just wants to, let it fall by the wayside and go the way of the Stonebridge Inn, demolition by neglect. And we just don't want to have that happen. But there's really nothing we can do. I mean, there's so much. That's why I'm hoping that, that to bring it to your attention as the EDC, now that there, for any historic property that's within a commercial zone, there are state grants for that to restore or renovate historic properties. That's actually how the Bourne Mill got redone, because that company used state grants.
Now, this is just a question because it popped into my mind. Before, let's say it goes down to the wire, he wants to demolish it. Are there any grants for somebody willing to take that building and move it to the nearest convenient commercial area? Would that be applicable to somebody who would say, gee, you know what, if I can get a little help, I'll move it and then, revitalize it?
Well, they'd have to apply for the grant.
Right, but is
And
that a
hopefully they get it,
possibility?
But we have a 90-day, there is a 90-day moratorium on a historic property for demolition.
Right, but before, let's say it gets announced and there's the 90 days and somebody says, no, I don't really want to see this building put down into separate little sticks of wood. I will take this building and move it if I can get some grant money to help me. Is a grant money go with the building or just with the whole site, with the whole footprint?
It's the building.
We should, what, Sue, it would be helpful actually for me if I understood a little bit more about, are those grants like ongoing? Is it always there? Do the
Yes.
grants have cycles?
Yeah, can we get a copy of the
Could we
grant?
get a copy? Yeah.
Okay. They are available on the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission website. RIHPHC. And here's the thing, and Renee, you probably remember this because you tried the same thing. If we had local historic districts in our town, like historic district zoning, some towns also call it local historic districts, we could get another grant called a CLG, Community Local Grant. And those are available all the time. And we could use it to put up historic signage. We could use it for studies. We could use it for a lot of stuff in this town, but because we don't have
We
local
don't have a
historic,
historic district out and down
we
that road.
can't apply for them. And that's
It would-
the problem.
It would be,
But
it would be
The
really
type of
helpful.
grant I'm talking about for the commercial building, if an owner of a commercial building that's historic can apply for a grant for his building
Okay.
through the RIHPC.
I'd like to know a little bit more about that, just to have, so that I would have it as a resource, in case somebody came to me instead of you. It
Yep.
might be, so that would be great.
Yep, go on their website.
Okay. Any questions for Sue before we move on to the next items on the agenda?
Well, the other thing that we're doing
Okay.
and is we do have another thing that we're going through that Barbara's been involved in, as we've had historic placemats in restaurants. She's been putting them in restaurants. The first one we had in restaurants was on historic places around town to draw tourists or whoever, give them a little bit of, here's this building and essentially what it is, and it's still there, type of a thing.
But that's actually an Arts Council project.
Okay, but the information came from us, and
Okay.
I created the
Well,
word
the
search
information,
for it.
and it was historic, and it served the
Right.
purpose of everything. It's let's not split hairs
And
about
what was
it,
the
but
next thing, Sue?
it's actually, it came out of Arts Council money and everything, and I had that money, so I thought that I would
I understand
combine
that,
the
but
two.
the original intention for me for these placemats was to get the EDC
The
to have
placemats were
local
excuse me, but the
businesses.
placemats were my idea originally.
Okay,
but, yeah.
That's
But let's
great.
not-
I
let's not
appreciate his
argue
vote.
about that. Yes, and we'll have another
Exactly.
two.
Exactly.
We'll have
Can we just
another
sort of-
round coming
Can
out.
you finish
yeah.
up your, I just want to let Sue finish up because we do have an agenda that we need to get through. So
Yeah.
let's,
The next thing that's happening is next month, we're putting in a historic Tiverton's Lost Heritage exhibit. And I have put together photographs and the history of the buildings that we have lost over time in town. So that's going to be put up in the town hall for the next month or
Great.
so.
perfect.
So hopefully that'll spark more interest in preserving the buildings that we have.
That would be, and after, just as an aside, after you do it in town hall, that might be something that maybe could sort of travel to either schools or to the library, so that it would get a lot of people seeing it. I just, that sounds like a wonderful idea, and I think we shouldn't just leave it at town hall. I think it should move around town a little bit.
I
But most
hesitate to
definitely,
put it
like
in
the
schools
library.
because schools will not do anything with them. And I'd be afraid that with Barbara putting it all together, matting it and everything, it'll just get put by the wayside. That's
Well, the
why I
library.
gave. And so a library would be better.
Library sounds, I'm just throwing it out there as, because it sounds like a wonderful exhibit, and it would be nice to have it, not just, because after a while you take it down from town hall and it could be more of a traveling educational exhibit. So however you
Well-
choose to do that would be great.
I was actually, and since you have an in with the library, I was actually going to suggest, because I did use the tops of the bookcases at the library for the parking lot display for the senior class. There's enough space because we'll have something like around 70 framed pictures. Well, half of them are pictures, half of them are the descriptions. That would be an ideal place to display them in the library if the library would permit it, but sometimes they want to use the space for displaying their books. So if you can put a good word in for the future, I think that would be
I
great.
can talk to Catherine.
Yeah.
All right. Any other
And the
questions for
last thing I
Susan?
want to add is the Bridgeport block. I had a meeting specifically with the owner. He invited me. He was coming up from Texas, and I met with him because I was the head of the chair of the board, and we had sent letters to him too, and he wanted to go over the, what I thought of the exterior materials and everything, but he's also concerned about. He gave me a tour of the inside. It's very open on the inside, and that's why he was doing storage so he could get his money back. And I said, well, what about a sailcloth or kayaks or, rentals, because we lost that business on Riverside. And are you still there?
Yes,
Oh,
I am. I'm listening.
Yeah, you were here.
Yeah, no, my screen just went blank and I didn't see you anymore. Yeah, so I did give him options of make it into some kind of because he has the docks there. He actually has 4 docks that he rents out behind his building.
Right.
And there is a boat ramp there also. And so I tried to get him into the kayak and paddleboard and that kind of a rental thing. And he says, well, what am I going to do with the off season? And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, but you know what? I'm glad you made that connection, because literally after just speaking to Dave Stewart, it just seems to me that there's got to be something that we can start doing there.
Right.
We at least opening up the conversation. So I think I'm glad you did that.
It's 2 floors and they're all open. There's nothing inside. Just huge floors. They were used to make the top floor actually has pieces of the fish nets still stuck in the tar, because they used to tar the fish nets to preserve them. And it was very interesting. So they are keeping it open. And one thing I suggested, have a sail making shop, or go to the class that's down IYRS
Yeah.
down in Newport, and
Yeah,
have
there's so
that
much-
school come in here in Tiverton, so they could build ships in there.
There's a lot of talk up in the state about the quote unquote, the blue economy. And the blue economy is anything to do with marine industry, and something like a sail shop or something like a kayaking or something like, some kind of even business office that handles shipping or something. There's a lot of buzz in the state about that. So that's something to be aware of when speaking to him. And again, this is, as I hear things, I will certainly pass them along to you.
And I can also give you his contact information.
Perfect.
So you can contact him directly as EDC.
Good.
Because
Thank you.
he just wants his money. He spent a lot of money on that, and he's just trying to get some money coming in.
Sounds like
And that's why he
Sounds good.
threw out the storage thing, because he's trying to keep it as open as he can, so the storage is kind of temporary inside.
right.
But
I'll tell you, it would be ideal for a sail loft, because big open space is what
Yeah.
you need.
exactly.
Not that I know how
And
to
it was
build
perfect
sails,
for sail
but
off. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you.
Well, you've got the
Thank
sail
you.
loft.
Thanks,
Doesn't
Susan.
matter.
That's
Renee, this is Lisa.
Yes.
Just before you move on, I was looking at the agenda while Sue was finishing up, and it
Sure.
seems like a pretty packed agenda for tonight. I didn't know whether we wanted to take a step back and see if we think we can cover it all, or if not, to prioritize. I know we want to hear from Christine on the call with us, but just a thought.
I agree. What we might want to do is, and again, this depends on whether the committee is okay with the commission's okay with this. I think there are people who are interested in talking about the Four Corners, saw the agenda item that said the Four Corners Meeting House, and are interested in talking about that. So that really is just informational. I'd be more than happy to go ahead and jump ahead with that, so that those people could understand what that was all about. Would that make sense to people?
Yes. Yeah. I have to leave in a short. I have an meeting with my accountant for taxes
Okay.
tomorrow morning, so I don't. I'm on a
Okay.
time thing too.
Okay, I will, it's just informational. Just the way Susan talks about people contacting her because she's the head of the Tiverton Historic Preservation Advisory Board. I often get phone calls from people who are concerned about businesses or business situations in the town. And that's what this issue is about. I received a phone call from a vendor who works out of the meeting house in Tiverton Four Corners, who was concerned that because of a situation, what had happened was she uses the meeting house to have functions, weddings at the meeting house. And last year, there was, in October, I want to say, there was a wedding at the meeting house, and the meeting house owner was issued a zoning violation for having that event. Now, what has happened since then is that it has become more of a legal issue. When this individual contacted me, she gave me the information about it. Excuse me. And this is an issue that literally has been, oops, wrong paper, sorry. This is an issue that is a longstanding issue in the town as to what is allowed to be done in certain buildings and what's not allowed to be done in certain buildings. And as I told the vendor, I said, this is something that I can ask questions, but since it's a legal issue, I am not in the position to do anything about it. And Mike, maybe this is something that you could chime in on, because since it was a violation that was issued, that's between the town and the owner of the meeting house, and has nothing to do with the Economic Development Commission per se. What I did do for her though, and because I felt like I needed to understand the information, was that I sent an email to the building inspector, to the zoning official, I think to the town solicitor, and to Chris Cotta, so that I could understand what was going on. And I, in fact, met with Chris Cotta last Friday, and he explained to me that they had already met with the vendor and had spoken to her, and that, as I said earlier, this was a zoning issue. That was not something that I could do anything about. It was something that she would have to look into, perhaps getting some relief from the town council. That is this particular vendor, but even she's not the owner of the property. So it's a very complicated issue, and I just wanted to let the group know that that's what's going on. And that as I do have a letter that was sent to me by Maureen Morrow. Whoops, I just put it down somewhere, sorry.
Are there issues with her preparing food or serving food?
It's just what a building is zoned for and what it's used for has to be within the zoning. It has to be described. The Tiverton Four Corners is village commercial, and if you look in the zoning laws under village commercial, it will tell you everything that's allowed by right, everything that's allowed by special permit, and everything that's not allowed. And so the discussion is what's allowed and what's not allowed. And that, like I said, it's a zoning issue. And I'm just going to see if I can pull up this letter. Unless, Maureen, are you there? Can you hear me? She is.
Hello?
You're
I see
muted,
her, I
Maureen.
see her name, but I don't see.
Trying to unmute.
There we go.
I am here, and in the interest of your time, and I respect you've got a full agenda still, you have my email, and that really summarizes some of my concerns. the thoughts that I have hinged more on Sue Anderson as the chair of the Historic Advisory Commission, but then I saw the Meeting House item as well. So it may be something you might want to put on your agenda in the future, and I'd be happy to come back and speak. My concerns are just me as a citizen who lives near Tiverton Four Corners. And I just want to echo a couple of themes that Dave Stewart had. It has to do with coordination among commissions and committees about certain issues in our town. It also has to do with understanding that we have an asset in Tiverton Four Corners. And when I go back and I see the reports that the Merchants Association has provided to your commission, Renee, I see that they mostly are, it's economic development, and that certainly is true. But I'd love to see more input from the Historic Advisory Commission and others about how we can preserve the historic nature of Tiverton Four Corners, because it is eroding. I don't know how many of you have a chance to drive south. I don't know where you all live in town, but I live about a quarter of a mile south of Four Corners. And it's become very crowded. I want to applaud Mike Burke for saying something about you cannot think about parking after the fact. You have to think about parking up front, because groundswell has been allowed to expand. And then parking became like, oh, where are we going to put all these cars? So, and then I want to say one other thing, and then I'm going to yield because I know you've given me time, is somebody made a point about, I think it was Sue, historic preservation is important. We want Tiverton Four Corners to remain appealing to people. They are not going to want to come in 1, 2, or 3 years if the place starts to look kind of overdeveloped, kind of schlocky, where the historic nature of the paths that connect the buildings has disappeared. So I'll just leave it at that.
I just want to,
Maureen.
can I jump in on that?
Sure.
This is
Sure.
Sue.
Well, I shouldn't be saying sure.
No.
Sure, Maureen.
There is, because it's village commercial, it is specified in both the zoning and the comp plan about the design of aspect of that particular area. And it is historical, it's deemed historical, and it is actually on the National Register, although that doesn't unfortunately save anything.
Yeah, that doesn't.
But it is village commercial, it is specified as a historical design nature. So they are kind of preserved. Because of our comp plan and the zoning, it does preserve that area as historic. Unfortunately, those that buy some of the new properties don't pay any attention to that, and they just go ahead and do the thing, and then the building inspector finds out about it, and he comes down and he says, no, stop, you can't do that. I mean, that's what happened to 18 East Road. They started putting a second floor up, and they weren't supposed to do that. That was definitely not, and the materials they used and the design that they used was not historic at all, didn't fit at all. So the planning board actually stopped that one, and tried to get them to fit better, which they have now. But you just have to, unfortunately, they're so far away, and the building inspector's like, one person, and he's all over town. It's got to be enforced by the town. And, if you see
I would
something,
agree with Susan.
call the town immediately, because they're not always down there.
I know,
You're
but
down.
I think Tiverton Four Corners also after it was purchased by Groundswell, and I think COVID entered into it. I think, having so many meetings by Zoom, I think a lot of things were done and there wasn't great oversight. And so the best we can probably do now is going forward, make sure the oversight and the coordination among commissions and committees really happens.
And trust me, the owners of Groundswell also got one of the historic property owners actually they've gotten two because I hand carried one over to them when I first printed it last year, and then they got it in the mail again. So all the owners of the properties down there have that, so they know that they're supposed to meet the design standards of the Secretary of the Interior.
Christine, I know you're someone who's down in Four Corners, and I saw your hand raised. Would you
Yes.
like to?
Maureen asked if anyone lived near, and Maureen, I think you know that I both own a business in Four Corners and also live in the same building. I think we're on the litter committee together. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right person, but I haven't been here long. I moved in last year, but I feel like I need to speak in defense of Four Corners a little bit, just the direction the conversation's going. I am not of the type of person who believes in sort of like, you know, do something now and ask beg forgiveness later. I have never been in that type of person. I used to work in construction. I was opposed to it when I did that, and I'm opposed to it now. And I don't agree with Groundswell's approach to some things, which seem to be along those lines, because I do think it does a disservice to the rest of us trying to, you know, work within the rules. That being said, this area to be maintained as a historic area with buildings preserved also needs money to come in. So for this to survive, the businesses need to survive here as well. So those two things have to go together. I understand the residents' concerns about, you know, too many cars or whatever. I understand their concerns about potential noise and potential litter. I would like to just remind you that I own the business. I'm on this committee. I'm on the Discover Newport board. I'm on the litter committee. I'm dedicated to the community. I'm also very active in the Merchants Association and trying to do things the right way as much as we can. If businesses down here don't survive, this area is not going to survive. So as much as I understand concerns, there needs to be support for the businesses in this area if you expect us to support these 200-year-old buildings. I need events to take place next door to have more people coming here. I need things like that to survive. That's one of the reasons I moved here from Providence, where I had people walk by my door every day. I don't have that down here. If I choose to own this building someday and I need to maintain it, my business needs to do well or I'm going to leave. So these concerns are genuine. I 100% agree, but there needs to be working together. It can't be us and them. Even though you may not like the meeting house, my understanding, this is years before, but Roz and her husband bought all these properties and preserved them in the first place. It's the reason Four Corners exists as this sort of, you know, preserved area or a big part of it. So
I know all that, Christine, and I don't have any beef with the fact that the meeting house was on the agenda with nothing after it is what Rose, you know, brought me to the meeting. I love the meeting house. I was upset last summer when the meeting house became commercialized. I thought that was, I couldn't believe that there was a business operating out of the historic meeting house, but I'm hearing you. And I hope I hope the Merchants Associations are and continue to be good stewards of Tiverton Four Corners, because as I said before, and as Sue Anderson said, if the historic nature of the village begins to erode and it's no longer pleasant to look at, and it becomes cluttered with cars and merchandise spread across the front of properties and so forth, nobody will want to come.
Well, no one will. Well, I don't.
Barbara, could you just wait until they sort of talk? Could you just wait a second?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I said, if you expect a building like the one that Groundswell owns to be newly completely painted and renovated, and you expect me to come in and be able to, you know, keep this place clean and in good shape and, you know, in a historically preserved state, I need to do well. So there needs to be a shared sort of situation. One can't work without the other. I can't make it look nice if I'm not doing well. So
I think that's,
No.
it's always a balance and between, it's always a balance and and it's always a delicate balance because, people have been living there for years and years and here you are, people have been, like she said, had Roz not preserved it, we wouldn't have it to begin with. So I think it's always a delicate balance. I think what people have to be aware of is that it is that people live there as well as work there. And that, we need to sort of be, first of all, I think people need to be respectful of each other and respectful of the situations and whatever the zoning laws are. So things are not happening. I think it's unfortunate that things have to be stopped in the middle of things because people were not following some of the rules, whereas somebody like you is following the rules. I mean, so that is, and I know for a fact, a perfect example is the cheese wheel. The cheese wheel must have gone before zoning and planning any number of times, and they did it the right way. They went and they got their permission and they spoke about it, as opposed to things that were done without being checked and without going through proper channels. And I think that's part of the frustration. But because if it's going through the proper channels, then people can in fact have input. When it's not going through the proper channels, you don't receive notice, so you don't have input. It just sort of hits you in the face that it's happening. And I think that's part of the problem as well. I mean, this is not a conversation that we're going to be able to resolve right now. I think it's good that people have brought it up, and I'm glad you're here, Christine, to sort of, so we have both sides. And Maureen, you could maybe help me if I could ask you, what would you want to be on the agenda, or is this what you wanted?
Oh, I'm thank you very much for giving me even a little bit of time you've given me, because I do think during COVID, when groundswell started to really, expand, all these different boards and commissions were looking at certain pieces of it. And I think a lot of people down here at Tiverton Four Corners in our neighborhood were kind of taken by surprise with the amount of the development that has happened.
Right.
So there's really nothing more that I would want to say other than, the Merchants Association, I think would be wonderful if they would just be good stewards. And I've lived here since 1997. So, I hate to kind of pull that card that I've lived here a long time, but I do remember, I know that the Weirs restored Tiverton Four Corners, but I don't want the beauty of that historic village to be eroded by too much commercialism. And that's really all.
I think we can just sort of, the one point that I do really appreciate that you brought up, Maureen, is the idea of how one of the reasons we're having guest speakers, and one of the things that I did speak to Chris Cotta about when I was speaking to him on last Friday, was that I would really like to have the commissions talk to each other, because I think sometimes, and that means not only the commissions, but like the building inspector or somebody from the planning board. And we did that once pre-COVID. And I would like to do that again. And he's talked about doing that again. So we could just sort of understand where everybody's coming from, because most of us are volunteers. We're not paid experts. We're volunteers that are trying to do the best for the town and for the people that live in it. And I think it's important that we all get on the same page. So I appreciate your point. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for allowing me some time.
Sure. I think Barbara wanted to say something for a while
right.
now.
My thoughts as I'm sitting here listening to you is, did groundswell and that whole Four Corners development ever become a discussion at Discover Newport? Because they sort of kept track of everything and they took pictures of different parts that the communities are part of Discover Newport. And I just wonder if Evan and had any thoughts about it.
I don't know, Barbara.
I don't understand your question.
Well, at the Discover Newport meetings, do you ever talk about the improvements? Because I was concerned when I was still on Discover Newport that the area down here was starting to look a little shabby and so forth. So certainly it's come exactly the opposite way. And I wonder if there was talk at any of the board meetings about commercial developments in any of the towns that are members of the Discover Newport board. Do you ever talk about, did you ever talk about Four Corners and what their thoughts were as if it's going in the right direction?
I invited Discover Newport to come, and they came last fall, I think. I forget exactly when it was. And they presented to us, visited the area. I gave them a tour. They took pictures, so they would have a nice selection of pictures. The board meetings, as you know, are very much, I mean, we all share highlights of what's going on. So I often share what's going on. And, you know, the perspective is very different depending on who you're talking to. So, you know, a lot of people think that Four Corners looks great and it's been beautified. And then people like Maureen think it looks terrible. You know, there's a big divide on that. But as far as what's happening, you know, we focus more on, you know, tourist and Tiverton. I don't have as much to input from Tiverton. Talk a lot about, you know, short-term rentals and that sort of thing more than the specifics. But we talk about, you know, bringing people here for events, definitely, and that sort of thing.
Right. Okay. No, I just thought maybe it had come up as a discussion.
Christine, do you have, do you have, well, let's just stop for a minute because I'm looking at the rest of the agenda, and usually we tend to wrap up around 8:30. The rest of the agenda is fairly quick, as it was more informational. I don't know what you were going to bring up from, you know, your Discover Newport or Tiverton Four Corners, whatever you wanted to.
I did at the last meeting ask them about that potential grant program that they mentioned that was going to, where they would use their surplus and sort of direct it back to the communities that they support. There's no program in place yet. And he did say that it is still in the works. However, it is going to be sort of based on like how much income is generated into that fund. And so I said, so Tiverton gets $10 because we have no hotel.
Right.
You know, laughed and he said there is, you know, like a minimum amount. So, you know, and definitely, you know, Sue looks like she's still on the call. You know, we talked about maybe using it to highlight the historical aspect of the town, you know, if we were to, once we understand the parameters of that. So I have the meeting next week. And if I get something that has a deadline, I'll let you know right away. If it's something that can wait till the next meeting, I'll bring it there.
Okay, thank you.
And just to chime in just about the meeting house specifically, that was built in the 1990s.
That's what I
It's
thought.
not historic.
I thought the thing was not historic. It's
No, it was
Yeah,
built
it's not historic.
No.
a
It was
brand new
built-
building.
historically. It was built to
Right.
look an
Right.
18th building.
Exactly, but it's not one of the historic buildings.
No.
It's a nice looking building, but it was not historic building. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. All right, I can quickly go through the rest of the agenda because it's basically just informational for people. We're bumping back up to the EDC mailing postcard returns. We've had a good, according to Dave, we had a good return. We've had at least 70 people send back their postcards that went out in the tax assessor's mailing in December. Because we got those responses, I was able to send out immediately information on the Rhode Island Rebounds Small Business Grant information to the people that sent in the cards. So there was because they sent us the cards, they was something immediately that went back from the EDC saying, thank you for sending your card. And now this is a grant program that is coming up by the state. And Christine, you know about it because you also got it. And it went out to the Four Corners people. And so it was called the Rhode Island Rebounds. Businesses could apply for grants for $2,500 or $5,000. I read in the paper that at least 2,000 businesses have applied. I was able to send out information again from Isabel Marsh, who is the business liaison from the Newport Chamber of Commerce. So that was, I just wanted to let people know that our cards did do some good work. And we're still getting them. And I immediately put them on the mailing list, and that's something that both we need in town, but it's also something that the Chamber of Commerce is working on. They're trying to get the state to figure out ways to get mailing lists so that people get things in a more timely fashion. In terms of the Connect Greater Newport meeting, I will be speaking to Chris Cotta, because what's going on, the big thing that's going on from Connect Greater Newport is that they are looking for letters of support because the Chamber of Commerce and Connect Greater Newport are trying to get the state legislature to pass a bill that would basically develop a broadband czar, is what they're calling it. Somebody who would be able to help with broadband, if that means internet, broadband availability in different towns and across the state, because we really do have significant problems with that, both for businesses and anybody whose Cox cable has gone down knows what that's all about. Energy ordinance has not started. I will be on the commission or the committee for that. The business park feasibility study, I have not heard anything back from that, nor has Chris Cotta. Budget planning, we're waiting for the budget committee to start. I assume, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Mike?
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Muted.
got it. So budget committee is probably not going to start until March, but at our meeting on Monday, we're going to set some dates for our budget to be worked on, budget workshops.
Okay.
Most likely, one date will be the commission, the council has to approve this, but the ones that are being thrown out are Saturday, the 19th, starting at 11 a.m. Monday, the 21st, starting at, I believe, 6 p.m. Don't quote me on that.
This is February or March?
This month. This is for the town council's budget workshops. It's not
Okay.
for the budget committee.
Gotcha.
So Monday, the 21st at 6 p.m. and Saturday, they're all on our agenda too. That'll be coming out shortly. Saturday, the 26th of February at 9 a.m. So by that Saturday, we hope to have a revised budget to submit to the budget committee. So if you haven't given any revisions that you might want, Renee, to Chris, I would get them to him pronto.
I did send in,
Okay.
I did send in the budget that increased our original budget by $200. He should have a copy of that. And
So it didn't include the fees for the chamber and the like?
I resubmitted the actual budget that I had sent in the first time that did include the fees.
Okay.
Plus the additional $200.
Okay.
So it's the exact same budget, just an additional $200.
Okay.
So that's gone in. I know, and Barbara, you had wanted to start, you had said something about developing a new business, closed business list.
Yeah, because you don't really know what's opening, and you don't really know who's no longer in business. And I think it really should be on the town's website. Whenever there's a new business that opens, that they should, for the next 2 or 3 weeks or a month, say welcome, to the list, and then just have an ongoing list of the new businesses or something, because you don't know who's coming in. For instance, is where Little Bear was, did she open her daycare center yet? I mean, that's a business. It's
Looks
not
like it's open.
It's open.
It looks open. I don't know if it actually is.
Yeah. Well, there are cars there, but I don't know. I've never seen a little kid there.
I think they're still working on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they may be training staff too.
Yeah, but in any case, that's just an example. And I, for instance, I didn't know that there was a business running out of the meeting house, and that would, and it just for information purposes.
I think part of it, I've raised this with, I raised this a while back with when Nancy Mello was town clerk, and one of the problems is that businesses,
come and go.
It's like where they go for, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead. I'm just talking out loud to
No,
myself.
I think this along with emails is something that should be done in town. It's a question of looking at the forms and looking at the process that they use. Like, what's the point of entry for a business? Is it through the building inspector because they're doing a building? Is it through the licensing because they're getting a license? So there's different points of entry for businesses to come in, but I think there's got to be a way that we could. This is something that we've talked about, and in fact, that was one of the reasons why. How many years ago we actually had Liz Tanner come into town to work with the clerk's office to talk. It was like that whole lien project that they were going to look at all the forms and sort of streamline the forms, and maybe it's time for another lien project. I can put that on on the list.
Right.
When I speak to
Or
Chris
even,
Cotta.
I've been saying we need like a town crier website where it's semi-official, but where new things happening are posted, and not on Facebook, on just another. Some people don't do Facebook or whatever.
I do want to.
You need like a welcome wagon for businesses. There's a little
Right,
one
yeah,
that's
just,
right next to Cleanorama that I didn't even know was there. There's a
Well,
gift shop next to Cleanorama.
Oh, I love that gift shop.
Trinkets. Yes, and I, as a matter of fact, I stopped there and got a few things, and she's very anxious whether or not she can make it, and that's perfectly valid. But more people should know about it, and I dare say the people on the eastern side, on Stafford Crandall Road area, that don't pass by there probably don't quite even know where to locate her because she's around the corner.
There is something that
maybe that's something the EDC can do, is write letter to the papers and saying, here's our new businesses in town.
Yeah, but who gets the paper now? This hardly anything.
Can I just interrupt for a second, because we have something that might help with this a little bit, and this will be number 8 on the. We're getting close to our 8:30 time. The Greater Newport website, the Chamber of Commerce, and this is something, Christine, your businesses should know about, and I will I'll see if I can get a mailer to send it out to them. But the Chamber of Commerce is developing a website for Newport County where businesses for free can list their business on this website. So if people go to the Chamber of Commerce and want to shop local, they can look and find businesses in Tiverton, businesses in Newport, and this is for free. And I can get that information out to you, but it's called the Shop Greater Newport website, and it's from the Chamber of Commerce. So if you wanted to, check it out yourself ahead of time. I don't know, when I looked for Tiverton, there were, I think, 5 businesses on it already, but that's it.
Renee, I was on that call with you, and because she invited me, and I did already send out an email to all the merchants.
Okay, great.
I'm not going to have time to go over it in detail at next week's meeting, but I do want it on the agenda for the next meeting. And I also wanted to give them a heads up because there is this huge push for marketing. Like they said, they're going to do the buses and it's going to be on the road show. And so that's going to be, it does make sense for as many businesses as possible to get up there. So I would say, yeah, if you have that mailing plan, whatever. What
I can do is get more information. And with the emails that I have, if you've taken, do you want me to send it to your group, or I can send it to you and you can forward it, or you've already sent it out?
I sent it. You should have gotten it because I don't think I took you off the mailing. So if you want to use it as a starting point for your language, if it's any help to you, since I already put it together, feel free. But I'm pretty sure.
I'm sorry. You're right. I think I did get yours. Okay. I'm confusing it with the other thing that I got something else from. Sorry, I've gotten a few things from Isabel, and it's just, I'm a little confused. I apologize for that. And so we can do that with businesses. Martin, we had talked a little bit about daffodils. I don't know where you were at with that last year.
Well, I passed it by the members of the Land Management Commission and I didn't get a whole lot of enthusiasm. I still haven't given up on the idea, but
Okay.
there was some complaints about the fact that you had to let the grass grow where you planted them until the middle of June, because otherwise you wouldn't have them recur. And I thought that was kind of not exactly a really good
Yeah.
excuse not to do it. But so I'm going to have to do a little more sales work.
You know what? Go for crocus, because they're done by the time
Well,
grass
I
is
like that
grown.
idea, but the rabbits and the deer like the crocus, and so they eat them all.
Oh, okay.
So crocus and tulips are kind of off the list.
Yeah.
But
Okay, well, I'm
Scylla,
going to say good night. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
okay,
Thank you. Bye,
Scylla is
Barbara.
another one that's really early and is really brilliantly blue, which would be a great companion with the daffodils, because you'd get April, and then later in April the daffodils come. Actually, March for Scylla. So I'm still working on that idea. I may do it anyway on my own, just for a little bit of a spot, just to make a sales pitch. But we'll get together and talk about it some more.
It is 8:31. We usually end at 8:30. Does anybody have something that they want me to, or can think of something that we should bring up and include for the next month's agenda? And if not now, certainly I always put something out to ask for agenda items. But if you can be thinking of things, that would be great, and send them along to me.
We should think about how we can use this mailing list. I really do. We haven't had it. I know there are probably times in the past where I said, I wish we had a mailing list, and maybe just think about it, just briefly discussion about what ways we could use it.
I think the COVID was when it really, I had been wanting to do this before, but COVID was clearly what crystallized it for me, because so much information was coming out and needed to get out immediately. And I remember calling up each restaurant directly when the restaurant grants came out, because I didn't have emails.
Right.
And it just didn't make sense. And I know, like I said, the state is also working on this for the very same reason. I don't know why it's never been done. But yeah, definitely email list is something, and just getting more people. Like I go every few days down to town hall, and there's always a couple of cards that are coming in. So we're getting them in dribs and drabs, but there's about over 500 businesses in town. So we have probably about 120 email addresses, counting your people. So that's how much more we have to go. Anybody else? Can somebody make a movement?
Move to adjourn?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Renee.